They mocked Jang Yu for surviving with 23 women. Then, his SSS-rank system turned the island into his battlefield. 8 armed raiders arrived expecting helpless prey and easy supplies. Instead, they found one man already controlling every advantage. His system doubled his body, traded resources, and ruled his fortified house. Even firearms were denied because his female alliance was considered unfair. So Jang Yu fought with fishing tools, traps, and ruthless timing. By sunset, every raider was dead and his team still stood. The victory looked impossible, but Jang Yu had been building toward it for days. Under the system's scrutiny, before the battle, the island seemed less like a kingdom and more like a starving prison. For now, 23 women shared one barren patch of land with almost no food, shelter, or clean clothing. Under pressure, most of them had once been celebrities, executives, models, actresses, or privileged heirs. Before another threat could arrive, the apocalypse stripped those titles away faster than hunger stripped away their pride. With every survivor watching closely, only Jang Yu possessed a system capable of turning ordinary resources into survival leverage. With no margin remaining, his player market allowed him to exchange fish for clothing, tools, meals, and essential equipment. As supplies dwindled, the fortified cottage recognized him alone, giving him water, storage, electricity, and absolute control. Before anyone could relax, his body had also received major stat upgrades, especially strength, speed, vision, and endurance. While the tide moved, those upgrades were not decorative numbers because every hard task became visibly easier, while trust remained dangerously incomplete. Zhao Ji learned that difference before anyone else fully understood what Jang Yu had become. As choices narrowed, after spending hours inside his cottage, she finally stepped back into the daylight. While the final hours vanished, she wore a clean blue sundress, fresh sneakers, and an expression the others barely recognized. While hunger deepened, only 2 hours earlier, Zhao Ji had looked exhausted, filthy, dehydrated, and close to collapse. Before night arrived, now her skin looked healthier, her hair was washed, and her steps carried renewed strength. With survival uncertain, the women sheltering beneath the boulder fell silent when they saw her transformation. While hunger controlled each decision, against their torn clothing and cracked lips, Zhao Ji looked like someone visiting a beach resort. Before dusk, that contrast delivered a brutal message without Jang Yu needing to explain anything. Before the group could rest, food, clean water, clothing, medicine, and safety all existed inside his small wooden cottage. While the tide moved, the women could keep struggling alone, or they could accept his rules and join his protection. Nearby still, Zhao Ji carried another outfit for Yi Qingxua, proving the benefits were not limited to one person. Jealousy immediately spread through the group, especially among those who had rejected Jang Yu earlier. As danger grew, some wanted to insult him, but their empty stomachs made arrogance difficult to maintain. As the island watched, others quietly wondered whether loyalty might earn them the same bath, clothing, and full meal. Before night arrived, Jang Yu did not beg anyone to join him because scarcity was already making his argument. That day, he simply told Zhao Ji that food remained available whenever she contributed and followed instructions. While tension mounted, in the old world, such terms would have sounded cold, controlling, and almost impossible to accept. Before dusk, on this island, refusing them meant facing hunger, exposure, and whatever arrived after the trial period. Without warning, the women tried to preserve their independence by searching the coastline for anything edible. While the tide moved, unfortunately, they had already stripped most tide pools of shellfish, seaweed, and small crabs. As their options narrowed, every morning required more effort, while every afternoon produced less food than the day before. As choices narrowed, their bodies weakened, arguments grew sharper, and tomorrow looked increasingly impossible. While the final hours kept disappearing nearby, a stranded fish finally appeared inside a shallow pool, sending the entire group rushing forward. While hunger deepened, the catch weighed enough to feed everyone briefly, and hope flashed across their exhausted faces. Before night arrived, they also discovered murky rainwater pooled between the rocks, barely enough for careful rationing. While supplies kept shrinking, the women celebrated, because desperation had reduced survival to fish scraps and dirty water, with no margin remaining. Meanwhile, Jang Yu prepared for fishing like someone living in a completely different world. As the pressure intensified, he traded for sunglasses, sunscreen, a wide hat, proper gear, and containers for the catch. Before fear returned, the ridiculous comfort of his preparation only deepened the gap between him and everyone else. Under growing pressure, Xiao Mingqi noticed him leaving and immediately offered to accompany him. While fragile group trust remained dangerously incomplete, her loyalty had once been weak, but she understood faster than most where survival power now rested. During survival, Yi Qingxua and Zhao Ji followed as well, refusing to remain useless dependents. While every choice mattered, the other women watched the four of them leave with complicated, hungry expressions. As the island resources shrank, Jang Yu led his small team toward the western shore, where deep water met jagged reefs. By then, silver flashes moved below the surface, and the crashing waves promised larger fish than before. With survival uncertain, he chose spearfishing first because the tide made casting nets too risky. While hunger controlled each decision, the three women expected skill, yet none expected his first strike to land immediately. As the pressure intensified, Jang Yu waited motionless, tracked a shadow, then drove the spear through the water. Before anyone could relax, a heavy sea bream rose on the tip, thrashing while sunlight flashed across its scales. Under growing pressure, Xiao Mingqi splashed forward with a bucket, praising him with genuine excitement. While fragile trust remained dangerously incomplete, Yi Qingxua and Zhao Ji exchanged a look that needed no explanation. As another consequence waited nearby, his system-enhanced body had converted fishing from uncertain luck into reliable production. While the final hours vanished, the next hour proved the first catch was not an accident. As dwindling island supplies increased the pressure, an eel, croakers, crabs, and several heavier fish filled their containers one after another. Before the next crisis, Jang Yu moved with patience, then exploded whenever the correct target entered range. With every survivor watching closely, every successful strike meant another meal, another trade, and another day the group could survive. While tension mounted, the women carried buckets, gathered bait, and tried to make themselves useful. As the system deadline moved closer, their early mistakes nearly cost him fish, earning a blunt warning instead of gentle reassurance. Before fear returned, Jang Yu told them to learn quickly rather than standing around feeling sorry for themselves. Under growing pressure, the criticism stung, but both women improved before the trip ended. While fragile group trust remained dangerously incomplete, Xiao Mingqi used her own skills, massaging his shoulders while he switched to rod fishing. As choices narrowed, her behavior looked shameless, yet her usefulness earned more approval than empty pride ever could. As danger grew, when the tide fell, Jang Yu changed methods again and cast a net through the shallows. Under pressure, the final haul included a fish so large that all three women struggled to move it. By the time they finished, the western shore looked like a private seafood market, while supplies kept shrinking. For Yi Qingxua, the lesson was impossible to ignore. While hunger controlled their next important survival decision, choosing Jang Yu had not simply earned comfort. It had attached her future to the island's strongest survivor. Zhao Ji reached the same conclusion while carrying a bucket heavy enough to bruise her arms. Without warning, even Xiao Mingqi understood that flattery alone would not preserve her place beside him. While the tide moved, contribution, obedience, and courage were becoming the real currency of Jang Yu's growing alliance. As their options narrowed, back beneath the boulder, the other women faced a different reality. As another painful consequence waited nearby still. They possessed one large fish but lacked knives, cookware, seasoning, and reliable fire. While the final hours vanished, sharp shells became cutting tools, seawater became seasoning, and stones became a cooking rack. As the island watched, their meal was smoky, tough, and unpleasant. Yet nobody dared waste a single bite. Before the next crisis, that night, Jang Yu rewarded the three helpers with pickled fish, white rice, and clean water. That day, the cottage filled with steam and spice, while the women outside rationed bland roasted strips. While tension mounted, inside, the three allies ate until their bowls were empty and their bodies finally relaxed. As supplies dwindled, Jang Yu watched their reactions and silently measured more than hunger. Before the exhausted group could safely rest, the system tracked loyalty, and Zhao Mingqi's score had risen sharply after consistent effort. While the tide moved, he rewarded that progress with clean shorts, a shirt, and durable shoes. While fragile trust remained dangerously incomplete, her delight showed exactly how powerful simple necessities had become. As another painful consequence waited just beyond sight, Yi Qingxua received permission to stay, while the others returned to the boulder. While every choice mattered, Jang Yu believed rewards worked best when everyone could see the difference between contribution and hesitation. Under pressure, the island now held two separate worlds, only a short walk apart. Before another dangerous threat could arrive, one had warm food, running water, electricity, and system protection, with every nearby survivor watching everything in silence. The other had cold stone, dirty clothes, weak fire, and constant fear, while hunger controlled their next decision. Before dawn, the global system announced that billions had already died. As the system deadline moved steadily closer, starvation, monsters, zombies, survivor violence, and betrayal were erasing humanity at terrifying speed. Before the group could rest, the women listened in silence, suddenly grateful that hunger was still their greatest enemy. While the tide moved, then morning revealed a white yacht cutting directly toward their island. While fragile group trust remained dangerously incomplete, several women cheered for rescue. But Yi Qingxua noticed the vessel's damaged hull and blood-stained windows. During survival, her warning reached Jang Yu just as 8 ruthless silhouettes gathered along the yacht's bow. As danger grew, the yacht carried no rescuers, only Lahu and 7 starving criminals who had already slaughtered their previous companions. Dried blood marked the deck, while 4 abused women lay trapped inside the cabin with no strength left to resist. Lahu had been a wanted murderer before the apocalypse, and the New World had removed his final restraint. His gang once pretended to need rescue, then attacked the compassionate passengers who brought them aboard. In silence, they kept the yacht, consumed its supplies, and treated every weaker survivor as something disposable. As supplies dwindled, now their food was gone, their fuel was low, and hunger had turned every conversation more savage. Without warning, when the island appeared, the gang celebrated as though the system had personally delivered them a prize. At once, a phone camera revealed more than a dozen women sheltering near the rocks, instantly sharpening their worst intentions. Lahu ordered every man killed and every woman captured, assuming the island contained no serious resistance. During survival, from the shore, Yi Qingxua sensed danger before anyone else accepted what the approaching boat meant. For now, she ordered the women to hide, then ran toward Jang Yu's cottage without waiting for agreement. Under pressure, several women still whispered about rescue, desperate enough to imagine strangers might behave kindly. Before the next crisis, others remembered the global channel, where survivors described robbery, assault, murder, and forced submission every hour. That day, by the time Yi Qingxua reached the cottage, the yacht was less than 2 nautical miles away. Her pounding on the door woke Jang Yu, who immediately noticed the terror behind her controlled expression. Before dusk, she reported the vessel, the visible men, and the instinct telling her their arrival meant violence. Without warning, Jang Yu moved to the window and used his enhanced vision to study the deck from a distance. 8 men stood ready with axes, metal pipes, and the posture of people comfortable with killing. Nearby still, he did not know their exact plan, but preparing for kindness would have been suicidal. As choices narrowed, the system marketplace displayed pistols, rifles, and other firearms. Yet every price exceeded his stored resources. For now, Jang Yu switched to player trading and attempted another purchase, hoping desperation might create a cheaper deal. Under pressure, instead, the system stopped him with a rule that felt almost personally insulting. Before another threat could arrive, because he was the world's only player allied with an entirely female group. Firearms were forbidden for balance. The message confirmed something enormous. The system considered his current advantage powerful enough to require artificial limits. In silence, Jang Yu nearly cursed aloud, but anger could not stop a yacht from reaching shore. As supplies dwindled, he traded instant noodles for a compact stun device, pepper spray, a machete, and waterproof communications equipment. Without warning, he also obtained swimming gear, spare clothing, and goggles for a plan he had not fully explained. At once, the tools looked primitive beside 8 armed raiders, yet Jang Yu understood terrain could multiply weaker weapons. Nearby still, his cottage could not be broken easily, and he controlled its door, electricity, storage, and internal systems remotely. The surrounding reefs created blind angles, underwater paths, and natural ambush positions unavailable to newcomers. As danger grew, most importantly, the raiders had no idea how many men lived on the island. As the island watched, for one cold moment, Jang Yu considered locking himself inside and abandoning every woman outside before night arrived. Their lives were not his formal responsibility, and saving everyone could easily get him killed. With survival uncertain, Yi Qingxua recognized the hesitation, but she did not appeal to kindness or morality. While tension mounted, she argued that 23 women had likely been gathered for a system-related purpose, making them valuable assets. Protecting them could unlock future rewards, strengthen his alliance, and prevent hostile players from taking control. Without warning, her logic matched the calculation already forming inside Jang Yu's mind. With dark ocean water surrounding them completely, he agreed to fight, but only if every woman followed the plan without improvising. As their options narrowed, Yi Qingxua received the stun device, pepper spray, 1 walkie-talkie, and strict instructions. As choices narrowed, the women would claim 3 men lived on the island, inventing 2 names to divide enemy attention. For now, they could reveal most details about the cottage and supplies, because believable truth would protect the central lie. If the raiders approached, the women were to lure them close and stall without revealing Jang Yu's location. Anyone who panicked, argued, or betrayed the deception would place the entire group in immediate danger. That day, Yi Qingxua returned to the boulders and delivered his orders with enough authority to silence most objections. The promise that Jang Yu would intercept the gang restored a small amount of hope. As supplies dwindled, Megan immediately questioned whether one man would risk himself for women he barely cared about. Before fear returned, her doubt struck hard because everyone had seen how detached and calculating Jang Yu could be. At once, Zhao Ji countered that violent raiders would eventually target his cottage, making conflict unavoidable. As their options narrowed, Zhao Mingqi defended him more firmly, knowing her own future depended on his victory. Under the system's scrutiny, the group finally agreed to follow the deception, though fear made several women physically shake. As danger grew, not everyone remained with them when the time came to move. As dwindling island supplies increased the pressure, Megan, Hilton, Dolores, Kanita Sakura, and others chose to flee toward the southern side of the island. By then, another frightened cluster later slipped toward the eastern reefs, unwilling to face armed criminals directly. With survival uncertain, Yi Qingxua allowed them to leave because fewer visible women might make the invented story more believable. Jang Yu had already moved through the back of his cottage, carrying a fishing spear and machete. Before dusk, he circled toward the western reefs, where tall rocks provided cover beside the yacht's likely landing point. Without warning, from a narrow gap, he counted 8 enemies and studied how they carried themselves. While the tide moved, Le Hu led with a fire axe, while the others held pipes, blades, and improvised weapons. Nearby still, their bodies looked weakened by hunger, but experience had made them more dangerous than ordinary survivors. During survival, Jang Yu's enhanced strength offered an advantage, not permission to become reckless against 8 attackers. As danger grew, he needed surprise, separation, false information, and the women's cooperation to reduce the numbers. As the island watched, the yacht slowed near shore, and Le Hu warned his crew that island residents might prepare an ambush. His men barely listened because their attention remained fixed on the women visible near the cottage. That day, greed made them careless, and Jang Yu intended to punish every careless step, while hunger controlled each decision. As the final man crossed the deck, Jang Yu moved from concealment and climbed onto the yacht's bow. His fishing spear struck before the rear guard understood someone had appeared behind him. Before anyone could relax, blood burst across the man's chest, and the first raider collapsed without landing a single attack. At once, Jang Yu stood above the others long enough to let them see his face and dark clothing. nearby still. Then he claimed his brothers were waiting elsewhere, strengthening the illusion of multiple defenders. Under the system's scrutiny, Lei Hu roared for the gang to kill him, but Jang Yu dove overboard before anyone reached the bow. The men rushed to the railing and searched the waves, unwilling to follow blindly into unfamiliar water. Under pressure, that hesitation gave Jang Yu exactly the psychological advantage he wanted. Before another dangerous hidden threat could arrive, Lei Hu left 2 guards aboard the yacht and led the remaining 5 toward the cottage. That day, he believed the hidden defenders were scattered, which made capturing women for information seem safer. While tension mounted, Jang Yu resurfaced behind distant rocks, changed into swimming gear, and watched the raiders split apart. Before dusk, the clothing change was deliberate because any later sighting would support the existence of another island defender. Without warning, he warned Yi Qingxua through the walkie-talkie that 5 enemies were moving toward her position at once. Then he entered the sea again, swimming underwater along the reef toward the poorly guarded yacht. Nearby still, the 2 sentries remained alert, but their conversation exposed hunger, arrogance, and complete trust in Lei Hu. During survival, they fantasized about taking supplies and women, never noticing the shadow passing beneath the stern. As danger grew, Jang Yu surfaced close enough to hear them, then returned briefly to shore instead of attacking from below. A direct underwater strike could leave him trapped between 2 enemies on a narrow deck. Before night arrived, he approached openly with the spear raised, forcing both guards to focus on a threat they believed they understood. The tall sentry swung a steel pipe, expecting numbers and weapons to overwhelm one exhausted survivor. In silence, Jang Yu crossed the distance faster than either man believed possible. As the system deadline moved steadily closer, his system-enhanced speed carried him onto the deck before the pipe completed its first heavy arc. Without warning, he ducked, seized the weapon, and ripped it from the sentry's hands with doubled strength. Under growing pressure, the fishing spear drove into the man's chest, ending the confrontation before his partner could coordinate. Nearby still, the second guard abandoned his weapon and jumped into the ocean, choosing flight over loyalty. As choices narrowed, that decision became fatal because Jang Yu was faster and more comfortable in the water. As danger grew, moments later, the fleeing man floated motionless beside the yacht, while Jang Yu climbed back aboard alone. Under pressure, 3 raiders were now dead, and the remaining 5 finally understood the island held a serious hunter. By then, from the hillside, Lei Hu saw the second outfit and assumed 2 different men had attacked his crew. The lie had become stronger without Jang Yu saying another word. While hunger controlled their next important decision, one frightened subordinate suggested retreating. But Lei Hu refused to return across exposed shoreline. As the pressure intensified, he ordered everyone to remain together and continue toward the cottage, where food and hostages might restore control. Jang Yu watched them advance, then sprinted back through the rocks with the walkie-talkie in hand. At once, he had removed 3 enemies, yet the most dangerous phase was beginning around the women. With danger nearby, Yi Qingxua heard his warning crackle through the radio and tightened her grip around the hidden stun device. 5 armed criminals were approaching, while the Alliance's survival now depended on frightened women performing one perfect lie. Near the cottage, Yi Qingxua gathered every woman willing to stay and repeated the deception until nobody could misunderstand it. They would speak naturally, admit their hunger, describe the stored food, and insist 3 dangerous men controlled the island. Their fear needed no acting, because Lei Hu's group looked exactly like the predators described across the global channel. Several women lost their nerve before contact and fled toward distant rocks, leaving the braver group exposed. In silence, Xiao Mingqi trembled harder than anyone, yet promised she would not betray Jang Yu. As the pressure intensified, the walkie-talkie suddenly crackled, bringing Jang Yu's breathless update through the bushes. Before the group could rest, he confirmed 3 enemies were dead and ordered the women to delay the remaining 5 near the cottage. Hearing that one man had already eliminated 3 raiders changed the atmosphere around the group. With danger nearby, Yi Qingxua hid the radio and positioned the women where the cottage would remain visible. During survival, Lei Hu arrived moments later with 4 men, each staring at the group with open greed. For now, Zhang Ming used her acting experience first, calling desperately for the invented defenders Jiang Chun and Lu Jian. Her shaking voice sounded completely authentic because the threat in front of her was real. Before night arrived, the raiders stopped and searched the vegetation. Suddenly, worried hidden men were preparing another attack, with survival uncertain. Lahu forced them onward, deciding a captive could reveal the truth faster than searching blindly. In silence, he questioned Jang Ming about the island's male population, and she repeated the prepared story without hesitation. Before dusk, 3 men lived there, she claimed, including 2 brothers, whose similar builds explained the attackers he had seen. The clothing change, separate attack positions, and carefully planted names made every detail fit together. Under growing pressure, Lahu turned toward Xiao Mingqi, judging her frightened posture as the easiest place to find contradiction. Nearby still, for one dangerous second, the women wondered whether her loyalty would collapse under direct pressure. As choices narrowed, Xiao Mingqi dropped to her knees, denounced Jang Yu as a cruel man, and begged the raiders for protection. Her performance sounded so bitter that even Yi Qingxua briefly felt irritated. As the island resources shrank, then Xiao Mingqi confirmed every part of the 3-man story, proving the anger was calculated misdirection. By then, Lahu believed her because betrayal was exactly what he expected from frightened, hungry women. With survival uncertain, Yi Qingxua strengthened the trap by describing mountains of food stored inside the cottage. While tension mounted, she mentioned rice, instant noodles, fish, steak, clean water, refrigeration, and fishing equipment. As the system deadline approached, the details were dangerous to reveal, but hunger could control the raiders more effectively than fear. Without warning, Lahu inspected discarded packaging and fish remains around the yard, finding physical evidence for her claims. At once, 2 raiders grabbed rocks and attacked the cottage door, desperate to reach the supplies inside. With danger nearby, the structure resisted until Jang Yu remotely unlocked it, making their final strike appear successful. As choices narrowed, inside, the men found exactly what Yi Qingxua had promised. While the final hours kept disappearing nearby, fish moved in water basins, supplies covered the table, and storage tanks held precious fresh water. Under pressure, the discovery overwhelmed their remaining caution because every item represented days of survival. Before another threat could arrive, Lahu still ordered 2 men to search the interior before allowing the others to enter. That day, the scouts checked the rooms, found nobody visible, and announced the cottage was clear. With no margin remaining, they failed to understand that emptiness itself was part of Jang Yu's design. As the system deadline approached, the house belonged to his system, which could lock doors, redirect access, and release defensive electricity. Without warning, Jang Yu had deliberately placed tempting food where the raiders would see it immediately. While the tide moved, he needed greed to pull them across the threshold before suspicion returned. While fragile trust remained dangerously incomplete, Lahu allowed 2 men inside while he and the others remained near the women. As choices narrowed, their stomachs growled loudly, and the sight of instant noodles nearly erased every strategic thought. As danger grew, the raiders decided to eat first, regain strength, then hunt the supposedly hidden defenders. As the island watched, after that, they intended to claim the women and island as permanent possessions before another threat could arrive. 1 man approached Jiang Ming, while others selected Zhao Ji, Yi Qingxua, and several foreign celebrities. That day, the women backed away according to plan, trying to look helpless without losing their nerve. While tension mounted, Yi Qingxua stepped forward as though sacrificing herself to protect Jiang Ming. As the system deadline approached, her right hand remained hidden around the stun device, slick with sweat. Before the group could safely rest, the approaching raider grinned and reached toward her waist, convinced resistance had already ended. While the tide moved, at that exact second, violent electrical cracks erupted from the cottage doorway. While fragile trust remained dangerously incomplete, the 2 men inside screamed as the house defense discharged through their bodies. As another consequence waited nearby, smoke rolled from their clothing before both collapsed across the entrance, completely motionless. While the final hours vanished, Lahu spun toward the cottage, searching for an attacker who did not exist. As the island watched, Yi Qingxua pressed the stun device into the nearest raider's back and triggered it. Before night arrived, blue sparks snapped across his body, dropping him before he could swing his weapon. While supplies kept shrinking, another attacker charged her, only for Zhao Ji to blast pepper spray directly into his eyes. In silence, he screamed, covered his face, and stumbled blindly across the yard. As the system deadline moved steadily closer, Yiqing Shua followed with the stun device, removing him before he recovered. Before the group could rest, the women had just disabled 2 hardened criminals using tools they barely understood that morning. Under growing pressure, their hands shook violently. But the plan had converted fear into a measurable result. As their options narrowed, Akun remained standing beside Lahu and charged Zhao Ji with an iron rod raised. During survival, Jang Yu emerged from concealment before the weapon could descend. While the final hours kept disappearing around them, his thrown fishing harpoon crossed the yard and buried itself through Akun's chest. As the island watched, the raiders stared down at the weapon, unable to understand how quickly victory had vanished. Before night arrived, he collapsed beside the women, leaving Lahu as the last fully conscious enemy outside. With survival uncertain, every woman felt her knees weaken when Jang Yu stepped from the bushes. While hunger controlled each decision, his arrival did not create the victory alone, but it made the outcome suddenly feel certain. Before dusk, Lahu saw dead companions at the doorway, unconscious men on the ground, and Jang Yu blocking escape. The confidence that had carried him onto the island disintegrated into pure survival instinct. While the tide moved, he sprinted into the cottage, dragged the charred bodies aside, and tried to barricade himself inside. Nearby still, Jang Yu did not chase immediately because the remaining disabled raiders still presented a risk. As choices narrowed, he recovered the harpoon and ended both men with fast, controlled strikes. While the final hours kept disappearing, the women watched in silence, disturbed by his ruthlessness, but unable to call it unnecessary. While hunger deepened, those attackers had openly planned violence, captivity, and murder against everyone on the island before the next crisis. Leaving them alive would only create another threat when attention moved elsewhere. With every survivor watching in silence, Jang Yu finally turned toward the cottage and gave the women a rare piece of approval. In silence, they had held position, maintained the lie, and fought instead of collapsing completely. As the system deadline approached, his compliment sounded blunt, yet Yiqing Shua understood how unusual it was. Before the group could rest, inside the doorway, Lahu recovered enough confidence to start threatening them again. With dark waters surrounding them, without the house, he argued, 23 women and 1 man would soon starve. As their options narrowed, the yacht lacked fuel, the island lacked resources, and Jang Yu could not protect everyone indefinitely. During survival, Lahu expected desperation to force negotiation, but Jang Yu listened with visible boredom. While every choice mattered, when the speech ended, Jang Yu asked whether those were meant to be his final words. Under pressure, the casual question erased the last trace of Lahu's manufactured confidence. Before another dangerous threat could arrive, he demanded to see Jang Yu's hidden brothers, still believing multiple defenders surrounded the cottage. With survival uncertain, Jang Yu finally revealed that no brothers existed and no second man had ever attacked. While tension mounted, every sighting, outfit, route, and name had belonged to the same survivor. As the system deadline moved closer, Lahu remembered the dark shirt, swimming gear, underwater approach, and attacks from different directions. Before fear returned, the truth arrived piece by piece, each detail showing how completely he had been manipulated. Under growing pressure, the women had lied to his face. The empty cottage had drawn him inward, and hunger had broken his judgment. Rage replaced fear for a moment. Yet he still refused to charge the group outside. As choices narrowed, he raised a lighter and threatened to burn the cottage, supplies, and everyone's future. While every choice mattered, Jang Yu remained perfectly calm because Lahu misunderstood who actually controlled the building. As the island watched, a narrow streak of blue electricity appeared inside and struck the lighter from his hand. Before night arrived, Lahu froze, finally connecting the invisible attack with the 2 charred scouts. With every survivor watching closely, he recognized the fortified cottage, the female group, and the famous player identity discussed online. While tension mounted, Jang Yu confirmed he was single forever 250, but offered no reward for the correct guess. A second electrical surge filled the doorway and hit Lahu with far greater force before fear returned. His body convulsed. Smoke filled the entrance, and the final raider collapsed beside his men. Under growing pressure, 8 criminals had attacked a group they considered defenseless, and none survived the island. As their options narrowed, the victory belonged to Jang Yu's system, planning, enhanced body, and the women who trusted his commands. During survival, for the first time, all 23 understood what joining his alliance could truly mean. As danger grew, relief spread through the yard slowly, because the women were still staring at bodies that had threatened them moments earlier. Without Jang Yu's trap, the raiders would have taken the cottage, supplies, yacht, and every survivor sheltering nearby. That understanding replaced their remaining doubt with a deeper, more practical respect for the system user. That day, Jang Yu did not celebrate or deliver a heroic speech after winning. While hunger controlled their next decision, he simply ordered the women to clean the area before blood and decay contaminated their limited living space. No one complained, even though several became sick while moving the bodies toward a pile of dry wood. The task forced frightened celebrities and executives to confront the physical reality of the apocalypse. Under growing pressure, these were not distant deaths described through a public channel. The consequences now lay directly in their hands. Once the bodies were stacked, Yi Qingxua used Lehu's lighter to ignite the dry grass. During survival, flames climbed quickly, sending black smoke above the island and removing the gang's final trace. As danger grew, Jang Yu watched the fire only briefly before turning his enhanced vision toward the yacht. While hunger deepened, movement on the deck revealed Megan, Hilton, Dolores, and the other women who had fled earlier. By then, for a moment, he assumed they might steal the vessel and abandon the island. While supplies kept shrinking, Lahu had already revealed the yacht carried almost no fuel, food, or fresh water. While tension mounted, anyone sailing away would travel only a short distance before drifting helplessly in open sea. As supplies dwindled, Jang Yu felt no desire to stop them from making that decision. Before the group could safely rest, on the yacht, the fleeing women discovered the bodies of the previous female passengers inside the cabin. At once, the sight exposed exactly what would have happened if Lahu had won. While trust remained dangerously incomplete, after fighting nausea, they moved the victims ashore and inspected the damaged vessel. As another consequence waited nearby, Dolores and Hilton confirmed the fuel would not carry them anywhere close to reliable land. As danger grew, the escape route they had imagined was nothing more than a slower death. As the island resources shrank, smoke rising beside the cottage suggested the battle had ended. But they did not know who had survived. Hilton finally admitted she had secretly watched Jang Yu kill both yacht guards almost effortlessly, with survival uncertain. Her account changed the group's calculation from fear of Jang Yu to fear of living without him. In silence, Megan swallowed her pride and suggested returning, even if his rules remained harsh. As the system deadline approached, a second frightened cluster waited among the eastern rocks, debating the same decision. Before the group could rest, they reasoned that if Jang Yu had lost, the gang would already be searching for them at once. Since no raiders appeared, victory became the only explanation that fit the silence. While trust remained dangerously incomplete, Deng Yujin proposed returning first, apologizing honestly, and accepting whatever judgment followed. As another consequence waited nearby still, Audrey remembered the few hamburgers left by Jack and knew that temporary food could not replace lasting protection. One by one, the women left their hiding places and approached the cottage with lowered heads. Under pressure, the group that had stayed regarded them coldly because fear had made them abandon everyone else. By then, Hilton apologized first, admitting that the violent stories from the global channel had destroyed her courage. That day, Megan and the others followed, asking for one chance to repair the damage they caused. While tension mounted, Yi Qingxua did not excuse their choice, but she understood why ordinary people had panicked. Before dusk, their disappearance had also helped the deception by making the island's female population seem scattered. Before fear returned, Jang Yu offered no comfort, praise, or immediate forgiveness. with dark ocean water completely surrounding their isolated island. His silence communicated that returning after danger passed did not earn the same trust as standing firm. Nearby still, the ashamed women volunteered to clean the yacht, remove the remaining bodies, and recover anything useful. During survival, Jang Yu allowed the work without acknowledging their attempt to regain favor. While the final hours kept disappearing, the Eastern group arrived later and found him completely unharmed beside the burned remains. As the island watched, seeing one man defeat 8 hardened killers changed their posture before a single word was exchanged. By then, they lined up quietly, unwilling to defend the decision to run. With every nearby survivor watching in silence, Jang Yu entered the cottage and returned carrying a sack of small bread loaves. With no margin remaining, he handed the food to Yiqing Shua with precise instructions about who deserved a share. Before dusk, every woman who stayed, followed the plan, or helped during the confrontation received bread. Before anyone could relax, the reward was modest. Yet, their empty stomachs made each loaf feel incredibly valuable. While the tide moved, Zhang Ming and the others accepted their portions with relief and visible pride. While trust remained dangerously incomplete, for once, courage had produced a concrete benefit instead of only preventing disaster. As another consequence waited nearby, the women who fled watched silently, too embarrassed to ask for food they had not earned. For now, their hunger sharpened the lesson Jang Yu wanted everyone to remember. As dwindling island supplies increased the pressure, he rewarded loyalty publicly, allowing the entire alliance to connect behavior with survival. Before another threat could arrive, Yiqing Shua, Zhao Ji, and Xiao Mingqi received something better than bread. With every survivor watching closely, Zhang Yu invited them into the cottage for fish hot pot and pork with stir-fried potatoes. In silence, each woman had played a direct role in the trap, so their greater reward reflected greater risk. Before dusk, Xiao Mingqi looked especially relieved because she had nearly considered betrayal before choosing faith in Zhang Yu. Without warning, her gamble had succeeded, and the system user's trust now carried more value than her former social status. Jiang Ming stared at her simple loaf while imagining the hot meal waiting inside. As their options narrowed, several others did the same, already wondering how to earn a place closer to Zhang Yu. During survival, that evening, the 3 trusted women bathed for a few minutes and ate until fully satisfied. For now, outside, the remaining survivors sheltered beneath the rocks and listened to distant kitchen sounds. As the island watched, Zhang Yu did not need uniforms or titles because access to his cottage defined everyone's position. By then, later, Zhao Ji remained inside while the others returned outside to rest. With every survivor watching in silence, the women under the boulder noticed her absence and quietly understood what it represented. With no margin remaining, some felt jealousy, others resentment, and several simply calculated how long they could survive independently. As supplies dwindled, Zhang Yu used the private player channel that night to contact Xia Wei, Zhao Ji's former partner. Without warning, Xia Wei had betrayed Zhang Yu before the apocalypse by helping destroy his relationship and career. At once, he had also mistreated Zhao Ji, then expected Zhang Yu to protect her while continuing to provide food. The hypocrisy made him the perfect target for a slow, controlled reversal. As another consequence waited nearby, still, Xia Wei opened the conversation by pretending concern for Zhao Ji and Zhang Yu's safety. As danger grew, his real priority appeared seconds later when he asked whether any food could be spared. While hunger deepened, Zhang Yu mentioned catching a large fish, instantly changing the man's voice from concern to desperate excitement. By then Zhang Yu calmly asked why a trusted brother had sabotaged him in the old world. That day, silence on the other end revealed more guilt than any confession could have done. With no margin remaining, Xia Wei denied everything, blamed rumors, and claimed years of friendship made betrayal impossible. As the pressure intensified, Zhang Yu laughed, suddenly pretended the accusation was a joke, and let him relax again. Before fear returned, the manipulation worked because Xia Wei needed food too badly to risk breaking contact. While the tide moved, Zhang Yu next announced that Zhao Ji had made her own decision about their future. With danger nearby, he brought her close enough to speak directly through the channel. As another painful consequence waited nearby still, Zhao Ji told Xia Wei that she had chosen to remain beside Jang Yu. While every choice mattered, the other end stayed silent long enough for denial to become almost painful. As the island resources shrank, Xiaowei begged, apologized, and insisted she was only trying to punish him. Before another threat could arrive, Zhao Ji answered with a cold finality, refusing to return to a man who treated loyalty as disposable. That day, Jang Yu added that Xiaowei's betrayal had accidentally improved his life, while hunger controlled their next decision. Without that treachery, he would never have discovered Zhao Ji's character or escaped his former relationship. Before dusk, the words struck harder because Xiaowei could hear their comfort while he remained trapped with dangerous survivors. Rage filled his breathing, but hunger forced him to control every insult, with dark water surrounding them completely. A violent leader named Dao stood nearby, reminding Xiaowei that Zhang Yu's food supply mattered more than wounded pride. Xiaowei swallowed humiliation and offered hollow blessings to the pair he secretly hated. Under the system's scrutiny, Zhao Ji exploded at the suggestion that she was property in some exchange between men. As danger grew, Zhang Yu calmed her while listening to Xiaowei continue his shameless performance. As the island resources shrank, the private channel exposed exactly how far desperation had stripped away Xiaowei's dignity. Before the next crisis, he would accept public humiliation, romantic defeat, and personal hatred for another meal, with every survivor watching closely. Before ending the conversation, Xiaowei offered information about Lu Yuru, Zhang Yu's former girlfriend. While tension mounted, Lu Yuru had left Zhang Yu for the wealthy Zhang Jia and helped deepen his humiliation before the apocalypse. The possibility of confronting both of them interested Zhang Yu far more than Xiaowei's excuses. Without warning, he promised additional food if Xiaowei located her and arranged contact. With dark water surrounding them completely, Xiaowei agreed immediately, unaware that his usefulness had only delayed Zhang Yu's judgment. As their options narrowed, outside the cottage, the alliance settled uneasily beneath the night sky, as another painful consequence waited nearby still. The raid had ended, but hunger, loyalty, revenge, and the trial's final day were pulling everyone toward another turning point. After the private conversation ended, Zhang Yu's cottage became the center of every whispered discussion beneath the island's stone shelters. The women who had run from the raiders understood that apologies alone would not restore the trust they had lost. Megan, Hilton, Dolores, and Kanita Sakura considered approaching Zhang Yu together before another crisis exposed their weakness. That day, Deng Yujin, Wang Churin, Audrey, Li Jun, Mavika, and Kamiva reached the same conclusion from another side of the rocks. Their independence had survived only because Zhang Yu defeated the danger they were too frightened to face. Before dusk, others remembered the billions already dead and refused to gamble on sudden kindness from the apocalypse. Without warning, the system had warned that zombies and mutated beasts would become drastically stronger after the trial. At once, if land monsters evolved, then the sea surrounding their island could become equally terrifying. As their options narrowed, that possibility turned Zhang Yu's cottage from a comfortable shelter into the only visible defensive stronghold. During survival, Zhang Ming made the first personal approach among the undecided women. While the final hours kept disappearing nearby, she had proven useful during the deception and understood that courage created an opening she should not waste. Rather than pretending innocence, she admitted hunger and accepted that survival required joining Zhang Yu's structure. By then, her honesty, maturity, and performance during the raid raised his opinion more than beauty alone ever could. That day, Zhang Yu allowed her to wash, gave her clean clothing, and listened while she explained her old public marriage. The perfect celebrity romance had been a business arrangement hiding betrayal, distance, and separate private lives. Before dusk, that confession showed Zhang Ming had already learned how appearances could conceal completely different realities. Before fear returned, she chose to align with Zhang Yu because his harsh rules were at least honest and consistently enforced. Their private evening remained inside the cottage, while the consequences became obvious outside. While trust remained dangerously incomplete. Hours later, Zhang Ming returned wearing clean clothing, carrying herself with more confidence than before. As choices narrowed, every woman still awake noticed the renewed energy, the supplies in her hands, and her changed place within the group. Zhang Ming stopped them by by explaining that Jang Yu needed rest and would not accept interruptions. Under pressure, whether the warning protected him or protected her new advantage, nobody dared challenge it. Before the next crisis, instead of returning to her former companions, Jiang Ming sat beside Yi Qingxue and Zhao Mingqi. That day, that small choice publicly declared which side of the alliance she now considered her own. While tension mounted, Yi Qingxue noticed the cloth bag Jiang Ming carried and correctly guessed Jang Yu had sent provisions. Inside waited enough small bread loaves to give every woman 2 pieces. Before the group could safely rest, Yi Qingxue had argued that allowing 23 potential allies to weaken further served no long-term purpose. The trial was ending. Future threats were rising, and starving people could become desperate enough to destroy group stability. Jang Yu finally accepted the logic, but he distributed help through someone who had recently proven herself. During survival, Jiang Ming announced that every woman would receive bread, regardless of where she stood during the raid. For now, the group crowded closer, yet nobody reached into the bag without permission. As dwindling supplies increased the pressure, Yi Qingxue, Zhao Ji, Xiao Mingqi, and Jiang Ming organized the distribution carefully. Before the next crisis, the trusted women took nothing because they already had access to meals inside the cottage. With survival uncertain, several recipients ate immediately, chewing slowly to stretch each bite and quiet their aching stomachs. While tension mounted, others hid the loaves inside their clothing, saving them against an uncertain morning. As the system deadline approached, gratitude mixed with calculation as the women looked toward the dark cottage windows. Before the group could rest, Jang Yu had saved them from criminals, rewarded courage, punished cowardice, and still prevented anyone from starving completely. His leadership was not gentle, but it was producing results that the scattered group could never achieve alone. The bread also proved he could trade cooked food for bulk supplies through the player market. During survival, one successful catch could become clothing, tools, medicine, defensive equipment, or enough calories for everyone. As danger grew, that economic advantage was as important as his physical strength and fortified house. As the island resources shrank, the women were not merely following a strong fighter, they were gathering around a complete survival system. By then, near midnight, the global announcement returned with another catastrophic population report, with every nearby survivor watching in silence. Its careless tone made the numbers feel even more horrifying. While hunger controlled their next important survival decision, the trial had one final day remaining before monsters, zombies, and mutated creatures received major upgrades. Before dusk, public chat filled with panic, screams, desperate praise, and survivors terrified of offending the unseen controller. Without warning, one player mocked the system, then vanished after a pack of mutated animals attacked. While the tide moved, others immediately changed their messages, praising the trial and begging not to become targets. As their options narrowed, Jang Yu listened from the cottage and remembered every complaint he had made about firearm restrictions. During survival, for the first time, he wondered whether the system had ignored him or simply had not answered yet. The thought lasted only briefly because planning mattered more than fear. As dwindling island supplies increased the pressure, when dawn arrived, the final trial day would be his last chance to gather resources before evolution. By then, the yacht offered access to deeper fishing grounds and catches impossible from the shoreline. While supplies kept shrinking, Yi Qingxue knew enough about boats to operate it safely near the island. With no margin remaining, Jang Yu decided the next day would focus on securing enough seafood for the entire alliance. Before dusk, before morning. However, Xiao Wei completed the task of locating Lu Yuru before the group could safely rest. His early private message carried excitement, fear, and the desperate hope of earning another food reward. At once, Lu Yuru was trapped beside Zhang Jia in an abandoned settlement surrounded by hostile survivors, with danger nearby. Her luxurious choice had become a nightmare of hunger, coercion, and dependence. As another consequence waited nearby still, Jang Yu did not feel pity because she had contacted him only after her wealth and protection disappeared. When Lu Yuru requested a private conversation, her username still referenced crying inside a luxury car, under pressure. The irony almost made Jang Yu laugh before the call even began. Before another dangerous threat could arrive, She opened with tears, regret, and claims that the apocalypse had revealed he was her only true love. This performance might have broken the old Jang Yu, who once begged her not to leave. In silence, the current Jang Yu answered with impatience and ordered her to stop crying if she wanted the call to continue. Lu Yuru obeyed instantly, shocked that the man she discarded no longer feared losing her. Before fear returned, Yi Qingxua entered during the conversation and quietly sat beside Jang Yu, with dark water surrounding them. Her presence created the perfect contrast between his past humiliation and current reality. While trust remained dangerously incomplete, Lu Yuru described Zhang Jia's cruelty, claimed she had suffered terribly, and begged for forgiveness. As choices narrowed, Jang Yu thanked her instead, explaining that betrayal had pushed him toward a far better life. For now, for one hopeful second, Lu Yuru mistook the gratitude for renewed affection. As dwindling supplies increased the pressure, then Jang Yu clarified that he no longer hated her because she no longer mattered. Before night arrived, when she threatened to end her own life, expecting him to panic, Jang Yu asked for a video call. The reverse psychology collapsed immediately, and Lu Yuru screamed that he had become heartless. With no margin remaining, Jang Yu reminded her that she chose status over loyalty and mocked his income before leaving. Before dusk, the apocalypse had not created her character. It had only removed the comfort protecting her from consequences. Without warning, unable to manipulate him emotionally, Lu Yuru finally begged directly for supplies and rescue. While the tide moved, Jang Yu refused, then demanded that Zhang Jia stop hiding and speak for himself. As their options narrowed, a slap and furious male voice exposed that the wealthy heir had been listening nearby. As choices narrowed, Zhang Jia called Zhang Yu worthless, accused him of cruelty, and tried to revive the old social hierarchy. Zhang Yu laughed because family money, company influence, and luxury cars held no authority in the apocalypse. Under pressure, the former rich heir was starving in ruins, while the former office worker controlled food, shelter, and an island. Yi Qingxua entered the argument after Zhang Jia insulted Zhang Yu's value. With every survivor watching closely, her cold voice stunned both enemies because she had once been unreachable, even to wealthy elites. In silence, Lu Yuru recognized the corporate president immediately and demanded to know why she stood beside Zhang Yu before dusk. He answered by naming Zhao Ji, Xiao Mingqi, Zhang Ming, and the rest of his female alliance. Without warning, any one of those women had once occupied a higher social position than Lu Yuru. Under growing pressure, together, they proved Zhang Yu's new life had surpassed everything his former girlfriend used to value. Nearby still, Xiao Mingqi, Zhao Ji, and Zhang Ming joined the conversation after hearing the insults. Under the system's scrutiny, they defended Zhang Yu by describing hot pot, steak, rice, instant noodles, and fresh seafood stored in abundance. Hungry swallowing sounds traveled through the channel from Zhang Jia's entire group. As dwindling supplies increased the pressure, the argument stopped being about romance and became a demonstration of who truly possessed power. Before night arrived, Zhang Jia claimed the system had simply made Zhang Yu lucky, but the excuse sounded weaker each time. Zhang Ming answered that old family wealth had once been another form of luck. With no margin remaining, without inherited influence, Zhang Jia had already proven himself incapable of leading anyone with loyalty. As supplies dwindled, Zhang Yu allowed the exchange to continue until his enemies were angry, embarrassed, and surrounded by starving followers. Then he carried a steaming bucket of instant noodles, close enough for everyone to hear the preparation. At once, the smell could not cross the private channel, but the sound of boiling broth was enough. Nearby still, Zhang Yu announced that whoever eliminated Zhang Jia and Lu Yuru within 10 minutes would receive the noodles. Silence followed, and that silence carried more danger than any shouted threat. While the final hours kept disappearing, on the other side of the private channel, Zhang Jia turned and found every starving follower watching him with predatory attention. Respect had disappeared from their faces, replaced by the calculation of people deciding whether one life was worth one hot meal. Lu Yuru demanded that he end the connection, but panic made her hands too unsteady to move quickly. Zhang Jia promised his men that more food would appear later, yet nobody believed another vague future after days of starvation. He tried offering Lu Yuru to them as a distraction, exposing how little she had ever meant to him. The men ignored the proposal because hunger had grown stronger than desire, fear, loyalty, or old social boundaries. Their eyes remained fixed on both targets while the remaining seconds of Jang Yu's deadline disappeared. At once, Jang Yu ended the call and returned his attention to breakfast. Confident desperation would complete the revenge without further effort. The system soon announced a private request from a player whose username admitted he expected betrayal from his own brothers. The man's voice sounded hoarse and cautious as he asked whether the instant noodle reward was genuine. For now, Jang Yu sent a photograph showing steaming braised beef noodles, thick broth, and a meal still hot enough to fog the container. Silence followed while the starving group studied proof that the promised reward actually existed. Before the next crisis, Jang Yu reminded them that only 2 minutes remained, applying pressure without raising his voice. With survival uncertain, the caller asked him to wait, then disconnected long enough to finish the arrangement inside the ruined settlement. Exactly 2 minutes later, a photograph arrived through the player interface. As the system deadline moved steadily closer, Zhang Jia lay motionless with multiple wounds across his chest, while Lu Yuru had also been killed beside him. Their final expression held the terror of people who discovered inherited status could not purchase loyalty from starving followers. Jang Yu examined the image without satisfaction, grief, hesitation, or any lingering affection. While trust remained dangerously incomplete, the two people who had humiliated him were now consequences of choices they continued making after the apocalypse. He transferred the promised noodles immediately, proving his rewards remained reliable even when the task was brutal. For now, how the survivors divided one bucket was no longer his concern. As dwindling island supplies increased the pressure, the revenge ended without Jang Yu traveling, fighting, or wasting a single physical resource beyond food. By then, his system, reputation, and understanding of desperation had allowed him to strike across an impossible distance. That day, that result marked another form of power, one more dangerous than doubled strength or electric defenses. In silence, Jang Yu could now make the enemies destroy themselves by controlling the resource everyone needed. As the pressure intensified, inside the cottage, Zhao Ji finished preparing egg-fried rice while the others set bowls around the table. The warm aroma replaced the private channel's violence with an almost ordinary breakfast scene. While the tide moved, Yi Qingxue, Xiao Mingqi, Zhang Ming, and Zhao Ji served Jang Yu first before filling their own bowls. None complained about the simple menu, because even leftover rice and eggs exceeded what billions of survivors possessed. While eating, Jang Yu mapped the final trial day with the same focus he used during battle. For now, at midnight, monsters and zombies would evolve, while sea creatures might become dangerous enough to close the coastline. The island needed food reserves before that change removed easy fishing opportunities. Before another dangerous threat could arrive, the captured yacht could reach deeper water where larger schools moved beyond the range of handcast nets. Yi Qingxue had enough experience at the helm to handle a short voyage under clear conditions. In silence, Zhang Yu searched the trading market and exchanged fish for several net designs suited to deeper water. Before dusk, his main choice was a small trawl net that opened behind a moving boat like a wide underwater pouch. The mesh allowed tiny fish to escape while trapping medium seafood, larger predators, crabs, and cuttlefish at once. One successful pass could produce more food than an entire day of spearfishing from shore. Nearby still, the plan also tested whether his enhanced body could haul a heavy net filled with seawater and struggling fish. Xiao Mingqi asked what he intended to do with the equipment, already hoping the answer included another full meal. Zhang Yu instructed Yi Qingxue to steer southeast toward deeper water after breakfast. As the island watched, Zhao Ji, Zhang Ming, and Xiao Mingqi cautiously asked permission to join the trip. Before the next crisis, he allowed them aboard under one condition: nobody could create trouble, ignore instructions, or slow the operation. That day, all three agreed immediately because staying near Jang Yu remained safer than waiting helplessly on shore. In silence, when the group stepped outside, Deng Yujin and Wang Churin approached from beneath the boulders. As supplies dwindled, both women looked exhausted, underfed, and disappointed to discover Jang Yu preparing to leave. Before anyone could relax, they had planned to accept his alliance terms, but first needed enough strength to function. under growing pressure. Deng Yujin asked whether they could borrow his handcast net and searched the nearby coast. Nearby still, Jang Yu reminded them that the bread distributed last night had been a temporary exception, not permanent support. The women acknowledged his terms, promised to fulfill their side later, and asked only for one chance to gather food. Their request was practical rather than manipulative, which made refusal less useful to Jang Yu's larger plan. Under pressure, he retrieved the casting net and placed it in Deng Yujin's hands with a final warning. By then, if they entered dangerous water or failed through carelessness, nobody would risk the entire alliance to rescue them. Both women thanked him repeatedly, eyes watering because a simple tool represented their first real chance at independence. Jang Yu walked toward the yacht with his 4 trusted companions, leaving the others to organize shoreline fishing. Every woman watched the departure, aware that the people beside him occupied a completely different position. Without warning, access to the yacht, cottage, equipment, meals, and information now reflected a developing loyalty hierarchy. Under growing pressure, that hierarchy seemed harsh. Yet, it also gave everyone a visible path toward greater security. With danger nearby, the women who had stayed uncertain could contribute, follow orders, and prove themselves during future danger. During survival, Jang Yu never promised equality, but he consistently connected effort with better treatment. While the final hours vanished, at the western shore, the captured yacht remained tied to the reef with a swollen seawater rope. Under pressure, Jang Yu loosened the knot and inspected the vessel for damage, hidden supplies, or remaining threats. By then, the cabin had been cleaned, though stains and scratches still recorded the violence that brought it there. That day, Yi Qingxua climbed to the helm, checked the low fuel gauge, and studied the control panel. In silence, she had operated yachts a few times before the apocalypse, enough for careful travel near visible land. Before dusk, the engine coughed before settling into a rough rumble, and the boat slowly separated from the island. Without warning, sea wind crossed the deck, lifting hair and carrying away the heavy smell of smoke from the previous day's fire. Zhang Ming stood at the bow and briefly joked that the voyage almost felt like a vacation. Nearby still, Zhao Ji watched the horizon with a quieter expression, struggling to connect the peaceful ocean with global collapse. Xiao Mingqi became seasick inside the cabin, but refused to complain after remembering Zhang Yu's warning. For now, he remained at the bow, studying currents, seabirds, watercolor, and surface movement for signs of fish. Under pressure, the system had improved his eyesight, but experience still determined what those details meant. Before the next crisis, Jang Yu directed Yi Qingxua toward a darker stretch of water southeast of the island. That day, the deep blue color suggested greater depth, while circling birds confirmed active feeding below the surface. In silence, a boundary between currents created a natural gathering place for plankton, small fish, and larger hunters. Before dusk, after roughly 20 minutes, Jang Yu ordered the engine slowed and the yacht positioned across the current. Without warning, he secured the trawl net to the stern, checking each float, sinker, knot, and section of mesh. At once, the floats held the upper edge near the surface, while weighted lines pulled the mouth downward. Nearby still, as the yacht moved, the net opened into a broad funnel capable of sweeping through the feeding zone. Yi Qingxua maintained low speed, while Zhang Yu watched the rope tension and adjusted their direction. For now, Zhao Ji, Zhang Ming, and Xiao Mingqi prepared buckets, gloves, and space across the deck. While hunger deepened, 15 minutes later, the net dragged so heavily that the stern settled lower against the water. By then, Zhang Yu ordered the engine stopped before the catch could tear the mesh or strain the attachment point. Hauling the net aboard demanded strength far beyond what any ordinary survivor on the yacht possessed. In silence, he wrapped both hands around the rope and pulled, forearms tightening as seawater poured from the rising mesh. The 3 women joined behind him, adding their weight even though he produced most of the force. Without warning, for several seconds, the net barely moved, making the full burden feel connected to something enormous below. At once, then a section broke the surface, revealing silver bodies packed together inside the dark mesh. With danger nearby, Xiao Mingqi shouted that the net was full, while Zhang Ming forgot her exhaustion and pulled harder. During survival, Every meter raised exposed more fish, crabs, cuttlefish, and flashing scales beneath the sunlight. While every choice mattered, Jang Yu braced one knee against the gunwale and used his doubled strength for one final controlled heave. The net rolled across the edge, spilling a living mountain of seafood onto the deck. Before night arrived, large Spanish mackerel struck the wood with heavy tails, while sea bass and croakers twisted between them. That day, crabs lifted their claws, cuttlefish released dark ink, and smaller fish scattered toward every open corner. In silence, the trusted women stared in stunned silence before dropping to their knees and beginning to sort the catch. Their first deep-water attempt had produced more food than the shoreline group could gather across several days. Jang Yu estimated the total at roughly 40 kilos, enough seafood to feed the island for nearly a week. The SSS-rank advantage was no longer only a combat secret. It had become a machine for sustaining 23 lives. Yet midnight still approached, and the system's promised evolution meant this abundance had to become preparation immediately. During survival, Jang Yu ordered every bucket secured, knowing the return to shore would transform admiration into open competition for his leadership. The deck became chaos after the trawl opened, yet Jang Yu immediately turned the excitement into organized work. He ordered large fish, separated from smaller catches so weight would not crush crabs, cuttlefish, or valuable species. Zhao Ji handled the buckets carefully, applying the same calm attention she had shown while cooking breakfast. That day, Zhang Ming sorted the sea bass and croakers, smiling whenever another heavy fish appeared beneath the pile. In silence, Zhao Mingqi fought through nausea and carried containers without asking for rest, determined to protect her improving loyalty. Yi Qingxua kept the yacht stable against the current, glancing backward whenever the deck shifted under the catch. Each woman contributed differently, and that practical division mattered more than the titles they once held. At once, the former executive controlled the vessel, the former heir managed food, the actress worked the deck, and the social climber endured discomfort. Jang Yu stood at the center because his system allowed those separate abilities to become one functioning survival operation. Without him, the yacht would still belong to murderers, the net would not exist, and the women would remain hungry ashore, without their help. However, even his enhanced body would struggle to sort, preserve, transport, and distribute every resource alone. That balance did not make the alliance equal, but it revealed why the system had gathered such an unusual group. Jang Yu counted the largest mackerel first, estimating several meals from each thick, powerful body, with survival uncertain. The sea bass offered cleaner meat, while croakers, hairtail, crabs, grouper, and cuttlefish added variety and trading value. He measured every catch through 3 questions: what could be eaten, what could be stored, and what could be exchanged. A single premium fish might purchase clothing or equipment worth more than several days of ordinary meals. Without warning, cooked dishes could command even better prices from isolated survivors, desperate for flavor and warmth. Under growing pressure, the player market transformed Jang Yu's fishing skill into an economic engine that grew stronger with every successful trip. His SSS rank advantage was not one flashy attack. It connected body enhancement, trade access, shelter control, and team growth. That combination explained why the system considered firearms unnecessary and potentially unbalanced in his hands. As danger grew, the earlier restriction had felt like punishment, but the yacht deck now displayed the scale of power he already possessed. Jang Yu could gather food, convert it into tools, defend a base, and reward allies without depending on another faction. Most survivors fought to protect one meal, while he was already planning how to multiply an entire week's supply. The system had not handed him victory automatically, because every advantage still required decisions: risk, labor, and timing. He had needed to recognize the current, choose the correct net, direct the boat, and physically haul the catch aboard. During battle, he had needed the same combination of observation, deception, terrain, and decisive action before fear returned. That pattern made his growth more dangerous than a simple stat increase, because experience improved alongside every system reward. Jang Yu wiped seawater from his arms and ordered Yi Qingxua to begin the return before weather or fuel changed. The yacht carried limited fuel, so unnecessary wandering could destroy their only method of reaching deeper water. During survival, Yi Qingxua turned the vessel carefully, keeping speed moderate to protect the catch and reduce consumption. For now, sunlight flashed across wet scales while the island slowly grew larger ahead of them. As the island watched, for several minutes, nobody spoke because the size of the haul still felt almost unreal. Before night arrived, Zhao Ji finally asked whether the seafood would be shared with every woman on the island. That day, Jang Yu answered that distribution would depend on contribution, obedience, and the needs of the larger survival plan. He would not allow hunger to destroy useful allies, but neither would he erase the difference between loyalty and cowardice. The response sounded cold, yet Zhao Ji had already seen him distribute bread even to women who ran. His actions showed that punishment had limits whenever complete abandonment would weaken the entire group. Under growing pressure, Zhang Ming requested steamed sea bass for dinner, testing whether her new position offered influence over the menu. Jang Yu gave no promise, and her playful disappointment drew the first relaxed smiles after several brutal days. That small moment mattered because the alliance had known almost nothing except fear, hunger, and calculation. For now, a shared joke on a deck filled with food felt like proof that survival could eventually become something more. Xiao Mingqi remained quieter, watching how Zhang Yu reacted to each woman and adjusting her behavior carefully. By then, she had survived the old world by reading powerful people, but the apocalypse demanded more than pleasing words. Zhang Yu rewarded usefulness, courage, and reliable follow-through, making manipulation without effort almost worthless. While tension mounted, her work during fishing showed she was beginning to understand that new rule. As the system deadline approached, Yi Qingxua watched the group from the helm and reached another conclusion. Before the group could rest, the women could not continue acting like isolated rivals once evolved monsters threatened the island. Under growing pressure, they needed food teams, boat operators, defenders, cooks, foragers, lookouts, and people capable of following emergency orders. Nearby still, Zhang Yu's authority had formed naturally, but authority alone would not organize 23 frightened survivors. During survival, her own planning ability could become the bridge between his resources and the group's daily survival. For now, that role gave her influence without challenging the person whose system controlled their strongest assets. While hunger deepened, Zhao Ji offered another type of stability through cooking, care, and quiet emotional judgment. Before the next crisis, Zhang Ming could persuade hesitant women and use her acting skill during deception or negotiation. With survival uncertain, Xiao Mingqi understood social tension, loyalty, and personal service better than most. While hunger controlled their next decision, even the women still ashore possessed languages, professional knowledge, physical skills, or public influence that might matter later. The system had gathered beauty on the surface, yet underneath existed a collection of highly varied abilities. Without warning, Zhang Yu had not fully accepted that potential, but the raid had forced him to see part of it. The women had held a lie under pressure, disabled attackers, moved bodies, and followed a complicated plan. Nearby still, they were not warriors, but they were also no longer completely helpless. As another consequence waited nearby, still, their greatest weakness remained hesitation, especially when fear made each person think only about individual escape. For now, the next stage would require turning personal survival into coordinated survival without losing accountability. As the island watched, as the yacht approached the island, Zhang Yu could see the shoreline group working with the borrowed casting net. Deng Yujin and Wang Churen stood knee-deep near the rocks, struggling to control the heavy wet mesh. Several others formed a line behind them, carrying buckets and watching for sudden waves. With no margin remaining, their technique lacked experience, causing the net to open unevenly and sometimes collapse before reaching the water before dusk. Even so, desperation kept them repeating the cast until shoulders and hands burned. Before the group could rest, a few small fish, crabs, and shrimp finally accumulated inside their containers, with dark water surrounding them completely. The women celebrated each catch because every piece represented food they earned without direct charity. With danger nearby, more than once, a wave nearly pulled someone off balance against the jagged rocks. Under the system's scrutiny, Zhang Yu's warning kept them from chasing fish into deeper water, where panic could become fatal. For now, they worked within the limits he set, slowly learning that survival required discipline as much as effort. Under pressure, Suli Xuan and Qin Sisi watched the yacht from beneath the boulder while rationing their remaining bread. Both had wanted to approach Jang Yu for days, but every crisis had changed the timing. That day, the boat leaving with 4 trusted women made their own hesitation feel increasingly expensive. With no margin remaining, around them, other survivors followed the same distant vessel with envy, curiosity, and regret. As the pressure intensified, nobody could see the catch clearly yet, but the stacked buckets already suggested success beyond their shoreline effort. Deng Yujin noticed the returning engine first and called everyone away from the breaking waves. Under growing pressure, the women carried their modest haul toward the landing point, proud until the yacht moved close enough for comparison. Then they saw silver bodies filling bucket after bucket across the deck. As another consequence waited nearby, still, their handful of small fish suddenly looked painfully limited beside 2 massive mackerel and dozens of larger catches. Wang Churin covered her mouth, while Deng Yujin stopped speaking entirely. As dwindling island supplies increased the pressure, the difference was not luck alone because Jang Yu had obtained equipment, selected the location, and directed the operation. His 4 companions also looked cleaner, stronger, and more confident than the women waiting on shore. That day, the returning group resembled a trained expedition, while everyone else still looked like scattered castaways. While tension mounted, that visual contrast completed the lesson Zhao Ji's clean dress had started the previous day. As supplies dwindled, joining Jang Yu did not only improve comfort, it created access to plans, tools, information, and opportunities. Without warning, a woman outside the alliance could spend hours gathering scraps. With dark ocean water completely surrounding them nearby, a woman working beside him could help return with enough food for nearly a week. With danger nearby, the women exchanged glances as the yacht approached, and several silent decisions hardened at the same time. During survival, pride had delayed them, fear had divided them, and hunger had punished every wasted day. As danger grew, now the final trial of sunset was approaching, leaving almost no time to remain undecided. As the island watched, Jang Yu stepped onto the bow as the vessel entered shallow water. Looking across every face gathered near the shore, he did not need to announce victory because the overflowing seafood delivered the message more powerfully. That day, the man they once mocked for standing beside 23 women had become the only reason all 23 might survive. Yet leadership would require more than admiration, because abundance always attracted conflict, dependence, and new expectations. Before dusk, the moment the yacht touched the reef, Jang Yu prepared to discover who would work and who would merely reach for food. The women rushed toward the mooring line, but Yi Qing Shua stopped them from crowding the deck before Jang Yu gave instructions. Excitement could ruin supplies just as easily as hunger, especially when wet boards, sharp hooks, and frightened crabs covered the yacht. Jang Yu assigned positions with quick gestures, turning the chaotic welcome into another controlled operation before anyone touched the catch. That immediate obedience showed the raid had already changed the group's relationship with his authority. As danger grew, Yi Qing Shua reduced the engine to idle, while Jang Yu secured the boat against the same reef used by Lei Hu's gang. The location carried a brutal memory, but the captured yacht now represented transportation, fishing power, and escape from shoreline limits. Women on land reached for ropes, containers, and buckets only after Jang Yu indicated where their help was needed. Deng Yujin and Wang Churin placed their small catch aside and joined the work without pretending the comparison did not hurt. The heavy mackerel required 2 women each, while smaller fish were carried towards shaded ground in separate containers. Crabs and cuttlefish remained isolated, so claws and ink would not ruin the cleaner catch. Before fear returned, Jang Yu supervised every movement because food left in direct sun would lose value quickly. Under growing pressure, the women who once considered him selfish now waited for his decisions before touching resources he had gathered. That restraint came partly from gratitude and partly from fear of losing access to future protection. During survival, Yi Qing Shua understood both motives and quietly reinforced order whenever excitement pushed someone too close. For now, Jang Yu first needed to estimate how much should remain for meals, trading, storage, and emergency reserves. Under pressure, the alliance could consume 40 kilos quickly if everyone treated abundance like a festival. before the next crisis. After days of starvation, controlling that impulse would be almost as difficult as finding the food itself. That day, Jang Yu's expression warned that anyone stealing from the catch would destroy her standing before the entire group. No woman tested him, especially after watching the consequences of Lahu challenging his control. As supplies dwindled, the raiders had believed possession came from force, but Jang Yu had proven planning and system authority mattered more. Now the same authority organized survival instead of violence, separating him from the men who attacked the island. He could be cold, demanding, and transactional without treating allies as disposable objects, while trust remained dangerously incomplete. That difference had to become painfully clear to every woman who saw the victims inside the yacht. During survival, Megan stood farther back than the others, remembering how quickly she had abandoned the group when danger appeared. The overflowing buckets offered another chance to contribute, yet she hesitated to move without permission. While hunger deepened, Hilton noticed the hesitation and began cleaning seawater from the deck, choosing useful action over another apology. By then, Dolores helped inspect the remaining fuel, understanding the boat could not support careless trips every day. That day, Kaneda Sakura gathered loose fishing gear and arranged it where Jang Yu could review everything recovered from the yacht. Their work did not erase the earlier escape, but consistent effort could begin repairing damaged trust. Before dusk, the Eastern group followed that example, carrying water, clearing space, and helping move the smaller containers. Without warning, Audrey protected the few hamburgers Jack had left, yet now saw how temporary those final gifts truly were. A personal food stash could delay hunger, but only a productive alliance could survive repeated crises. Nearby still, Li Jun watched Zhao Ji coordinate the buckets and imagined herself eventually earning the same confidence. During survival, Mavika and Kamiva remained quiet, studying how quickly the trusted women received responsibility. While the final hours vanished, every role beside Jang Yu had been gained through choices made under pressure. As the island resources shrank, Yi Qingxua earned command by bringing the warning and designing strategy with him. Before the next crisis, Zhao Ji earned closeness through loyalty, practical care, and willingness to stand during the raid. With survival uncertain, Zhao Mingqi earned improving trust by choosing the plan when betrayal might have protected her temporarily. In silence, Jiang Ming earned recognition by using her acting skill against criminals instead of protecting only herself. Before dusk, the pattern showed the other women that Zhang Yu's inner circle was not completely closed. Before fear returned, beauty alone had not secured those positions because nearly everyone on the island was exceptionally attractive. At once, useful ability, reliable action, and courage created the real separation. While fragile group trust remained dangerously incomplete inside, that realization replaced some jealousy with competition that could strengthen the group rather than destroy it. During survival, Zhang Yu noticed the shift in their expressions without commenting. While the final hours kept disappearing around them, he preferred ambition directed toward contribution because it reduced the burden of forcing cooperation. As the island watched, the system's loyalty interface had already shown that rewards could change behavior when applied consistently. Before night arrived, Xiao Mingqi's score had risen after food, clothing, trust, and successful participation. With every survivor watching in silence, others might follow the same path once survival benefits became undeniable, while hunger controlled their next important decision. Still, Zhang Yu refused to confuse dependence with genuine loyalty. As the system deadline moved steadily closer to night, a starving person might obey today and betray tomorrow if another faction offered greater security. Before fear returned, the upcoming system evolution would reveal who remained useful when fear returned. With dark water surrounding them completely, he therefore treated the fishing haul as both resource and test. While fragile group trust remained dangerously incomplete, women willing to clean, organize, carry, and follow instructions would help determine their own future access. During survival, those who only waited for portions would remain at the edge of the developing alliance. As danger grew, the system had delivered 23 women around one man, but it had not guaranteed harmony. Under pressure, old rivalries, national differences, celebrity pride, romantic jealousy, and personal fear still existed beneath temporary cooperation. By then, Abundance could intensify those tensions once immediate starvation eased, with every nearby survivor watching the outcome in silence. Jang Yu needed rules strong enough to prevent the cottage from becoming another battlefield. With no margin remaining, the raid provided a simple foundation: follow emergency orders, never expose the group, and never endanger others through selfish panic. Resource rules came next, connecting contribution with food, equipment, protection, and access to the cottage. Before fear returned, Yi Qingxua could help formalize schedules without turning the island into a lecture about administration. At once, the first objective remained physical survival through the final trial night. While fragile group trust remained dangerously incomplete, everything else could develop only if the sea, system, and evolved creatures allowed morning to arrive. During survival, dark clouds did not cover the sky, yet the warning itself made the bright afternoon feel temporary. For now, every wave striking the reef reminded the women that danger might rise from below after midnight. Under pressure, the same ocean feeding them could soon produce mutated predators capable of destroying nets, boats, or people. By then, Jang Yu studied the water while the last buckets reached shore. Refusing to treat the successful trip as permanent security, he planned to keep the yacht close, preserve fuel, and avoid unnecessary voyages until the new rules became visible. The hand-cast net returned from Deng Yujin without damage, proving the shoreline group had respected his property. Their small catch also showed they had worked instead of waiting passively for his return. Before fear returned, Jang Yu gave them a brief nod, a tiny acknowledgement that meant more than long praise from someone else. Deng Yujin straightened slightly, relieved that borrowing the equipment had not lowered his opinion. As their options narrowed, Wang Churen looked toward the cottage, knowing the agreement they made earlier still waited to be honored. During survival, neither woman asked to cancel the terms simply because the larger hall now existed. While every choice mattered, that restraint further separated them from survivors who viewed every kindness as permission to demand more. Under pressure, Suli Xuan and Qin Sisi moved closer, intending to speak with Jang Yu after the immediate work ended. They had delayed too long already, and the final trial day removed the comfort of waiting. That day, Megan's group reached the same decision, though guilt made their approach more difficult. While hunger controlled each decision, the island's social landscape was changing in real time around buckets of glittering fish. As the pressure intensified, yesterday, Jang Yu had been one isolated man surrounded by women who distrusted him. Before anyone could relax, today, he controlled the cottage, yacht, market access, fishing operation, weapons, and the only proven defensive plan. At once, more importantly, he had demonstrated that his resources increased when others contributed instead of shrinking automatically. Nearby still, the women could help him gather more than they consumed if organized correctly. As another consequence waited nearby, that principle transformed them from burdens into potential multipliers of his SSS-rank ability. While every choice mattered, the title of weakest arrangement no longer matched the reality forming on the shore. As the island watched, a lone man with 23 hungry women looked ridiculous only when every person acted separately. By then, under one system, the same group could operate as scouts, workers, negotiators, support teams, and survival specialists. That day, Jang Yu had already used 3 women to help catch fish, and several others to defeat armed attackers. The remaining members had just started discovering where their own skills might fit. As the system deadline approached, no official declaration marked the alliance's birth because necessity had already made the choice. Before anyone could relax, the women still possessed individual freedom. But every safe decision led them closer to Jang Yu's structure. At once, each meal from the cottage, each tool from the market, and each successful defense tightened that connection. Nearby still, some accepted it eagerly, some reluctantly, and some only because every alternative looked worse. Under the system's scrutiny, the system did not care about pride. It measured survival, loyalty, and outcomes. While the final hours vanished, Jang Yu had begun doing the same. As dwindling island supplies steadily increased pressure around every frightened survivor, he looked across the 23 women and understood that protecting them could become either his greatest advantage or greatest weakness. If they learned discipline, their combined talents would expand everything his system already provided, while supplies kept shrinking. If they remained divided, the next enemy might exploit the same fear Lahu nearly used. In silence, the fishing haul bought time, but time only mattered when converted into preparation. As the system deadline approached, Jang Yu therefore refused to let celebration replace work, while the trial's final hours continued disappearing. Without warning, the women sensed the urgency and kept moving, even as exhaustion tightened their shoulders and hunger sharpened every breath. By late afternoon, the island no longer looked like a random gathering of stranded strangers. With danger nearby, it looked like the unfinished foundation of a survival faction built around one impossible system user. During survival, and somewhere beyond the bright horizon, the apocalypse was preparing to test whether that foundation could hold. For now, the final afternoon forced every survivor to compare two futures: isolated hunger under the rocks, or structured survival beneath Jang Yu's authority. No woman could pretend the decision remained theoretical after seeing raiders, global death reports, and 40 kilos of seafood on one deck. The women who once rejected his terms now understood that waiting carried its own price, usually paid through weakness during the next crisis. Yi Qing Shua moved among the groups, listening more than speaking, and identifying which women were ready to contribute immediately. She did not promise comfort, romance, equality, or unlimited food because Jang Yu had authorized none of those things. Instead, she explained the reality they had all witnessed. His rules were severe, but his protection and rewards were consistently real. Deng Yujin and Wang Churin confirmed that even a borrowed net had allowed them to gather something through their own effort. Hilton admitted that the yacht contained evidence proving Jang Yu had saved them from a fate worse than starvation. Xiao Mingqi said less. Knowing her own transformation from scheming outsider to useful ally already spoke loudly enough. Zhao Ji remained near Jang Yu, calm and visibly secure compared with the uncertainty surrounding everyone else. For now, the contrast between her current condition and earlier exhaustion showed how quickly the alliance could change a person's survival chances. Then the global channel erupted again with reports of attacks, starvation, betrayals, and survivors disappearing before the trial even ended. The messages arrived from cities, forests, deserts, ruined villages, and open water, proving no environment remained permanently safe. Several voices begged the system for mercy, while others praised it only because fear had destroyed their honesty. The island women listened with pale expressions, finally recognizing how unusual their temporary safety truly was. Before dusk, their greatest recent threat came from human criminals, and Jang Yu had removed that threat without losing a single woman. Beyond the island, entire groups were collapsing because nobody possessed shelter, food production, communication, or reliable leadership. At once, the system's warning repeated through their memories once the trial ended. Zombies and mutated beasts would receive dramatic enhancements. That announcement became the final confrontation facing the Alliance. Even before a single evolved creature reached their shore, they had only hours to decide whether 23 separate people would remain vulnerable or operate as one coordinated unit. Jang Yu refused to comfort them with promises that the island would stay peaceful. As the island watched, he stated that the ocean might become more dangerous, the yacht might become unusable, and shoreline fishing could disappear overnight. The cottage could protect them only if nobody sabotaged access, revealed weaknesses, or brought danger directly to the entrance. Food reserves could support everyone only if portions remained controlled and useful work continued. With no margin remaining, the yacht could multiply supplies only while fuel, weather, and sea conditions remained manageable. As the pressure intensified, his system created extraordinary opportunities, but every opportunity still had a limit that careless behavior could destroy. Without warning, that honesty frightened the women more than false confidence would have. Yet it also made his leadership credible. Lahu had promised his men endless conquest while hiding empty fuel tanks and disappearing food. Nearby, still, Jang Yu promised nothing beyond what he could prove, then placed the proof directly in front of them. 23 women looked from the fish to the cottage, then toward the sea surrounding their tiny island. Nobody needed another speech about survival, because every direction contained evidence. As dwindling island supplies increased the pressure, Suli Xuan stepped forward first among the undecided group and offered to follow work assignments in exchange for stable portions. Qin Sisi joined her, accepting that pride had already cost them energy they might never recover. That day, Megan's group apologized again, this time pairing words with a promise to maintain the yacht and assist wherever ordered. The Eastern group offered foraging, cleaning, lookout duties, and any practical skills they could contribute. As supplies dwindled, not every voice sounded enthusiastic, but desperation had stripped away the luxury of waiting for perfect conditions. Without warning, Jang Yu listened without pretending their sudden loyalty came from affection. With dark ocean water surrounding them completely, most were choosing him because he was stronger, better supplied, and more reliable than every available alternative. Nearby still, that reason was enough for the present, provided actions continued matching promises. As another consequence waited nearby, still, he told them survival beside him would never be free, and betrayal would never be forgiven. For now, food would follow contribution, emergency orders would be absolute, and personal disputes could not endanger group resources. Under pressure, anyone unwilling to accept those rules could remain independent. But she could not expect the cottage to rescue every mistake. The terms sounded severe until the women remembered 8 bodies burning beside the house, while supplies kept shrinking. In this world, weakness did not receive gentle consequences, and pretending otherwise would only create more victims. In silence, one after another, the women accepted, some aloud and others through quiet nods that carried equal weight. Before dusk, the arrangement did not erase fear, jealousy, resentment, or uncertainty, but it created a direction everyone could understand. Jang Yu's SSS-rank ability had awakened around one unusual condition. He alone stood connected to an all-female alliance. The system balanced that advantage by denying firearms, increasing difficulty, and forcing him to use creativity instead of simple firepower. Every restriction had pushed him toward better control of terrain, trading, teamwork, and personal combat. As choices narrowed, the result was a leader capable of producing more from the island than anyone initially believed possible. For now, he had turned fish into clothing, noodles into defensive tools, a yacht into a fishing platform, and frightened women into an ambush team. Those transformations mattered more than any glowing rank label, because everyone had seen the consequences with her own eyes. Yi Qingxua quietly recognized that his greatest evolution was not physical, with every survivor watching in silence. At first, Jang Yu viewed every woman as another mouth competing for limited supplies, with no margin remaining. After the raid, he began seeing roles, skills, loyalty, and long-term value inside the same group. Before dusk, that shift did not make him soft. It made his decisions broader and more dangerous to future enemies. Protecting the women now protected labor, information, social influence, and system-related possibilities he had not fully discovered. Providing food increased loyalty, while loyalty increased the scale of tasks the alliance could accomplish. With danger nearby, the system had created a loop where successful leadership could multiply every resource and every victory. During survival, Jang Yu's enemies continued assuming 23 women were a burden because they judged only immediate consumption. For now, they failed to understand that coordinated people could fish, gather, scout, cook, negotiate, repair, and defend simultaneously. Under pressure, Lahu had made that mistake and walked into a trap built by the people he considered helpless. Lu Yuru and Zhang Jia had made another mistake by believing old status still controlled starving followers. That day, Jia Wei continued making the same mistake. Trading dignity for food while imagining revenge would restore his former importance. Jang Yu no longer measured himself against any of them. As the system deadline moved steadily closer to night, his attention had shifted toward surviving the system's next stage with enough strength to protect what he had built. The women gathered supplies closer together, careful not to leave food, nets, or tools exposed near the tide. The yacht remained secured within sight, its captured hull reflecting orange light across scratched white paint. Nearby still, smoke from the raiders' funeral had faded, but the memory remained embedded in every survivor's movements. During survival, nobody wandered alone without explaining where she was going. While the final hours kept disappearing around the island, nobody treated the cottage like an unlimited storehouse open for personal demands. As dwindling supplies increased the pressure, nobody laughed when Jang Yu inspected the horizon or reviewed the system market for additional options. By then, mockery had disappeared because results had replaced every assumption about his weakness. With every survivor watching in silence, the former office worker now possessed the strongest body on the island, the safest shelter, and the only expanding resource network. More importantly, he had earned enough trust to coordinate 23 people during the most dangerous transition yet. The final trial night still promised no mercy, and every woman knew the system might change their lives again at midnight. But for the first time, the fear did not scatter them towards separate hiding places. Under growing pressure, they remained near to the same cottage, watched the same shoreline, and waited beneath one shared plan. Nearby still, that unity was incomplete, fragile, and built from necessity, yet it was stronger than anything present when the yacht arrived. Jang Yu looked across the gathering without smiling, unwilling to mistake one successful day for permanent dominance. For now, he remembered how quickly billions had died, how violently survivors changed, and how easily abundance attracted predators. Under pressure, the next enemy might possess evolved strength, a stronger system, superior weapons, or knowledge he could not predict. His current victory, therefore, became preparation instead of celebration. With every nearby survivor watching the outcome in silence, the fish represented calories, trades, equipment, and time. But time would become worthless without discipline. While tension mounted, the women represented potential. Yet potential would become danger if jealousy and fear controlled them again. Before dusk, the cottage represented safety, but safety could become a cage if the ocean cut every supply route. Without warning, he had once been mocked, betrayed, underpaid, and discarded by people who measured worth through status. At once, the apocalypse erased their scoreboard and replaced it with a single question: who could keep others alive when everything failed? On this island, the answer had become impossible to dispute, as another painful consequence waited just beyond sight. Jang Yu could fight, gather, trade, plan, punish, reward, and adapt faster than anyone surrounding him. For now, his SSS-rank ability worked because he kept converting pressure into another advantage instead of waiting for rescue. 23 women had arrived as strangers, rivals, and terrified survivors before another dangerous hidden threat could arrive. Now they stood as the beginning of a faction whose strength came from one system and many different talents. The outside world still saw a ridiculous man surrounded by women and assumed pleasure, weakness, or blind luck. They had not seen the blood on the yacht, the electric trap, the underwater ambush, or the net rising from deep water. They did not understand that every woman beside Jang Yu now had a reason to protect the structure keeping her alive. That misunderstanding would remain useful for as long as future enemies continued underestimating them. While the tide moved, the final light faded across the sea while the Alliance completed its preparations around the cottage. Nearby still, midnight had not arrived, but Jang Yu had already won the most important battle of the trial period. He had turned survival from an individual gamble into a system his entire group could repeat. For now, Jang Yu's final task before darkness was deciding how the newly gathered resources would support survival without encouraging waste, theft, or dangerous dependence. The women watched him resist the temptation of abundance, learning that leadership meant protecting tomorrow from the hunger of today. Yi Qingxua helped estimate portions across 23 people, balancing weakened bodies against the need to preserve several days of food. Zhao Ji identified which fish would spoil fastest and which could remain useful longer under the cottage's limited cold storage. Zhang Ming kept the larger group focused, using humor and direct instructions to prevent exhaustion from turning into complaints. Zhao Mingqi moved between tasks without demanding attention, proving her loyalty through consistent usefulness rather than another carefully chosen compliment. The others followed, carrying water, clearing containers, checking nets, and moving equipment away from the rising evening tide. That improvement was the clearest evidence that the Alliance itself had begun leveling alongside Jang Yu. Nearby still, the system had strengthened his body, vision, endurance, shelter, and access to trade. As another consequence waited nearby, experience had strengthened his judgment, while responsibility forced him to think beyond his own next meal. For now, The women had gained no visible stat screens, yet courage and coordination had changed what they could accomplish. Together, they had survived starvation, resisted criminals, captured a yacht, and returned from deeper water with a massive catch. More food required protection. The yacht required fuel. The cottage required rules. And the alliance required trust. That day, Jang Yu accepted those burdens because each one also expanded his future options. While hunger controlled each decision, the raiders' arrival had begun as the island's greatest threat and ended by delivering transportation, equipment, and proof of his leadership. Lu Yuru's desperate call began as emotional manipulation and ended by removing 2 enemies without Jang Yu leaving breakfast. The fishing trip began as resource gathering and ended by proving the group could support itself at a much larger scale. That ability, more than raw strength, explained why his progress kept accelerating while stronger-looking survivors collapsed. Nearby still, the final trial hours passed with the group closer to the cottage, tools organized, and every eye watching the darkening water. No evolved beast appeared before the available story ended, but the warning remained heavy enough to prevent anyone from relaxing. They knew midnight could transform familiar coastlines into hunting grounds filled with creatures far beyond ordinary fish. Under pressure, Jang Yu refused to guess blindly about rewards, focusing instead on assets already under his control. By then, he had clean water, electricity, storage, market access, fishing equipment, a damaged yacht, and enough seafood for several days. He also had 23 women whose loyalty ranged from proven devotion to cautious dependence. While tension mounted, that imperfect group was still vastly stronger than the scattered individuals who had awakened on the island. Before dusk, Yi Qingxua stood nearest him, already thinking about schedules, watch rotations, boat use, and emergency communication. Without warning, Xiao Mingqi watched for instructions, eager to protect the position she had finally earned. While the tide moved, Zhang Ming spoke with the undecided women, making Jang Yu's expectations sound survivable without pretending they were gentle. Deng Yujin and Wang Churin held the borrowed net carefully, proud that they had contributed their own small catch. Audrey and the Eastern group understood that inherited supplies and private courage could not replace collective protection forever. Su Li Xuan, Qin Sisi, and the remaining women had finally stopped waiting for an easier offer that might never come. Each person reached Jang Yu from a different path, but the apocalypse had pushed them toward the same conclusion. Survival on this island now depended on the man they had initially dismissed, with every survivor watching closely. That truth could have made Jang Yu arrogant, yet the system's death reports prevented any comfortable illusion. In silence, one successful defense and one large catch did not place him beyond the apocalypse. As the pressure intensified, they simply gave him enough ground to fight the next round from a stronger position. Before fear returned, Jang Yu looked toward the yacht and remembered the 8 criminals who believed cruelty made them untouchable. At once, he looked toward the women and remembered how fear nearly scattered the alliance before battle. With danger nearby, their weakness had also been real, but clear roles allowed ordinary tools to defeat hardened attackers. During survival, every person contained both danger and value, depending on the pressure surrounding her choices. While every choice mattered, Jang Yu's leadership succeeded because he designed situations where useful choices produced immediate, visible rewards. While hunger deepened, Yi Qingxua's courage earned trust and influence before another dangerous hidden threat could suddenly reach their shore. Xiao Mingqi's contribution raised her position after a history of calculation, with every nearby survivor watching in silence. Zhang Ming's performance under threat opened the cottage door that pride had kept closed. With no margin remaining, the women who fled received survival, but not the same privileges as those who stayed. As supplies dwindled, that system of consequences created order faster than speeches about friendship ever could. Before the group could rest, it also matched the apocalypse, where every delayed decision could become irreversible, with dark water surrounding them completely. Jang Yu had no intention of becoming a saint, rescuer, or generous provider without limits. With the danger nearby, he protected the group because their survival strengthened his own position and possibly expanded his system. During survival, his motives were complicated, but his results were simple enough for everyone to understand. While every choice mattered, when armed men arrived, Jang Yu did not hide inside the only safe house. As the island watched, when the women weakened, he eventually shared bread instead of watching useful allies collapse. Before the next crisis, when deeper water offered opportunity, he risked the yacht and used his strength to secure the catch. That day, every action pushed the same message deeper into the alliance. While hunger controlled their next important survival decision, the old hierarchy was dead, and survival ability had become the only rank that mattered. As supplies dwindled, Jang Yu had awakened at the bottom of that new hierarchy in the eyes of everyone surrounding him. One man with 23 women looked like a joke, especially when every woman needed food and protection. Then the system revealed the arrangement's hidden rule. While fragile group trust remained dangerously incomplete beneath growing pressure, the supposed burden became an army of potential roles, each waiting for discipline and trust. As choices narrowed, the supposed weak man became the only survivor capable of connecting those roles into one strategy. For now, Lehu learned that truth when women he considered prey stunned his men and held the trap together. Lu Yuru learned it when the man she discarded controlled food valuable enough to turn killers against their leader. The shoreline group learned it when their exhausting effort produced scraps beside Jang Yu's 40-kilo haul. That day, without Yi Qingshua's warning, the yacht could have reached shore before he prepared. With no margin remaining, without the women's deception, the raiders would never have entered the cottage trap so carelessly. As supplies dwindled, without help on the trawl rope, valuable fish might have escaped or torn the net. Before fear returned, leadership did not reduce Jang Yu's importance. It multiplied the impact of every ability he already possessed. At once, that realization completed the central transformation of the available story. While fragile group trust remained dangerously incomplete inside, he had become the center of an organized faction capable of fighting, gathering, trading, and adapting under pressure. The women were no longer merely beautiful strangers waiting for someone else to solve their hunger. For now, they had begun becoming allies whose courage, knowledge, and labor could decide future battles. As the island watched, the island was no longer merely a barren prison surrounded by endless water. Before another threat could arrive, these changes remained fragile, but fragility did not make them meaningless. With every nearby survivor watching in silence, 4 days earlier, everyone arrived with nothing except fear and whatever identity survived from the old world. In silence, now 8 raiders were gone. Old betrayers had fallen, and enough seafood covered the deck to feed the entire group. Nobody laughed at his team composition anymore. Before the exhausted group could finally rest without immediate fear returning, nobody called the women useless when their deception had saved lives. With dark ocean water surrounding them completely, nobody dismissed fishing after the yacht returned, overflowing with proof. While fragile group trust remained dangerously incomplete inside, the title promise had become reality through strategy instead of empty hype. As another consequence waited nearby still, a man mocked for teaming with 23 women had awakened an SSS-rank advantage built for collective domination. His enhanced body supplied force, his system supplied leverage, and his allies supplied scale. As the island watched, together, those elements turned an impossible survival arrangement into the island's strongest emerging faction. Before the next crisis, the next system stage remained unknown, but Jang Yu would enter it with resources, loyalty, and control he lacked before. His enemies had already shown what happened when they mistook confidence for preparation. While hunger controlled each decision, his allies had shown what happened when frightened people trusted one clear plan. As the system deadline approached, as darkness settled, the women remained close to the cottage instead of scattering beneath separate rocks. Without warning, the yacht rested beside the reef, captured from criminals and ready for whatever use survived the coming evolution. Buckets of seafood reflected the last orange light, a visible promise that nobody beside Jang Yu needed to starve tonight. For Zhao Ji, the meal meant security after betrayal, as another painful consequence waited just beyond their sight. For Yi Qingshua, the organized shore meant a future worth helping build, while the final hours vanished. For Zhao Mingqi, the trusted position meant survival earned through adaptation, as dwindling island supplies increased the pressure. For Jiang Ming, the alliance meant honest terms replacing the empty performances of her former life. By then, for the remaining women. The site offered one final chance to stop hesitating and start contributing. That day, for Jang Yu, all of it represented only the first stable platform beneath a much larger climb. In silence, he had not conquered the apocalypse, and he understood that better than anyone as the system deadline approached. But he had conquered hunger, betrayal, invasion, and division long enough to create momentum before anyone could relax. That momentum was the true reward behind his SSS rank ability. Every enemy defeated became equipment, every fish became trade value, and every loyal ally expanded what he could accomplish next. The world expected one man surrounded by 23 women to collapse beneath impossible responsibility. Instead, Jang Yu turned responsibility into power and led every survivor beside him toward domination.